In the shadow of Mount Kenya, where the rolling highlands of Kikuyu land meet the vast savannas of the Masai Plains, a story unfolds like the mist rising from the Aberdare Ranges at dawn. It is the tale of Waiyaki wa Hinga, a man whose blood carried the fire of two worlds, whose spirit refused to bend, and whose legacy ignited the flames of resistance that would burn through generations. This is not just history, it's a saga of courage, betrayal, and unyielding pride, a story that pulls you in, whispering secrets of the past until you must hear its end. Our story begins in the turbulent mid-1800s amid the chaos of the Loikop Wars. The Masai lands were a battlefield of clans clashing like thunderclouds, with raids, famines, and natural calamities scattering families like leaves in the wind. Kumale Olematoka, a proud Masai warrior from Laikipia, fled southward with his young family, seeking refuge from the strife. They crossed into the fertile highlands of the Kikuyu, where the soil was rich with promise and the people known for their shrewd hospitality. In Gatodo, they were taken in by the generous Gadesha family. Kumale, with his tall frame and piercing gaze, spoke the Ma tongue that marked him as an outsider. The Kikuyu, ever watchful, nicknamed him Hinga, meaning the dissembler, one who lived among them but held secrets, a spy in plain sight. But Hinga adapted, embracing the ways of his hosts, tilling the shambas, trading in markets, and forging bonds through ritual adoption into the Ashera clan. He married Gina, also known as Nyabutu, a strong Kikuyu woman whose roots ran deep in the soil. Together, they built a life on the frontier where Maasai raids still echoed like distant drums. Into this blended world was born their son around the 1840s. They named him Waiyaki, a Maasai name evoking strength in hardship, but as he grew among the Kikuyu, it softened to Waiyaki wa Hinga, Waiyaki, son of the dissembler. From his father, Waiyaki inherited the warrior's stride and the fluency of Ma, allowing him to bridge worlds. From his mother, he learned the Kikuyu arts of cultivation, negotiation, and community. As a boy, he roamed the ridges of Kafete, herding goats through thorn bushes, listening to elders' tales around the fire. The Kikuyu society was no monarchy. Power flowed through age sets and councils, where mudhamakis, spokesmen, and leaders rose by merit, not by birthright. Waiyaki's youth was forged in fire. The highlands were alive with trade. Arab caravans snaked through, battering beads for ivory, while Masai warriors tested borders with spear and shield. Waiyaki proved his mettle in raids and defenses, his tall, muscular build and quick mind earning respect. By his 20s, he had undergone the rituals of initiation, joining an age set where bravery was currency. He married first one wife, then more, as was custom for a rising leader, drawing from the Dorobo people, the original hunters of the forest, to strengthen alliances. Over time, he took more than 10 wives, each bringing children and expanding his household into a bustling enclave. His brother, Gedhiya wa Hinga, stood by his side, sharing the burdens of family and land. Together, they amassed thousands of acres, dotted with cows, goats, and fortified villages. Waiyaki's home at Kehumo was a stronghold, a kehigo ringed by thorns, where laughter echoed from mud huts and the aroma of roasted meat mingled with the smoke of evening fires. Family was Waiyaki's anchor. He doted on his children, teaching sons like Munywa and Gethagoi the ways of the spear and the council, while daughters learned the rhythms of the farm. Evenings brought stories of ancestral spirits, of Maasai lions, of Kikuyu prophets foretelling strangers from the sea. Waiyaki was no tyrant. He ruled with counsel, hosting feasts where disputes dissolved in shared porridge. His wives managed the shambas, their hands turning earth into abundance, while he traded with neighbors, his Maasai tongue opening doors to ivory and hides. Life was harmonious, yet the winds of change stirred. In 1890, the strangers arrived, not from the plains but from the distant ocean. Captain Frederick Lugard, a wary Englishman with a mustache like a broom, marched into Dagoretti at the head of the Imperial British East Africa Company, IBEAC. They sought a route to Uganda. They were laden with guns and promises of trade. Waiyaki, being the strategist, saw an opportunity. Why fight when alliance could bring beads, clothes, and protection from rivals? He met Lugard near what is now Dagoretti Children's Center, his warriors flanking him like shadows. Words were exchanged, and Waiyaki in his feathered headdress, Lugard was in his stiff uniform. A treaty was signed in blood and ink, where Waiyaki granted land at Kihumo for a fort, where the PCA church stands today. In return, promises of friendship and trade. At first, it seemed a wise pact. Lugard praised Waiyaki Wayaki's people as honest and straightforward, and the fort buzzed with activity. But misunderstandings festered like untreated wounds. The British viewed Waiyaki as a paramount chief, a king with absolute sway. Yet in Kikuyu ways, he was a Mudhamaki, among equals, his power checked by peers. No single man commanded all. The fates were decided by the councils. Tensions simmered as British potters and askaris who hired guns from afar raided farms, stealing food and assaulting women. And now whispers turned into roars, and they say that these pale men are thieves. Waiyaki tried diplomacy, urging the people to restrain themselves. But when the intruders' greed spilled over, his patience snapped. In 1891, his warriors struck, raising the first fort in Kiawariua. 5 invaders fell. The Kikuyu tasted blood. George Wilson, who was left in charge of the fort, fled under cover of the night and was aided by a betrayer known as Kinyajui Gathirimu, who was a banished man who was once sheltered by Waiyaki. Kinyajui, who was seeking favor from the British, guided the British to safety, earning their debt. The British returned with fury. Major Eric Smith rebuilt at Kanyarere, dubbing it Fort Smith. Waiyaki's forces besieged it, arrows clashing with bullets. Then came the spark that ignited the blaze. Maktubu, an IBEAC worker who was a freed slave from Malawi, led a raid into Githogori over a dowry dispute gone wrong. A jilted husband was seeking revenge, and Maktubu and his men were ambushed, only one surviving. W.P. Pakis, who was the fort's hot-tempered commander, he vowed that he would punish people. Pakis launched a punitive expedition guided by Kinyajui, but Waiyaki, fearing that his own cattle would be seized in the chaos, he warned the Githogori people. They hit their herds, thwarting the raids. Pakis was angry because only 50 goats were claimed, and then word reached him that Waiyaki had tipped them off. That was a very big betrayal. On August 14, 1892, Pakis summoned Waiyaki for peace talks. Waiyaki was suspicious but an honorable man, so he arrived with guards and his sword at his side. Words flew like sparks, and accusations of sabotage, demands for submission. Waiyaki, his Maasai blood boiling, drew his blade, slashing at Pakis. Chaos erupted, and people were fighting with fists, with spears and guns. Waiyaki wounded Pakis but was overpowered. His own sword turned against him, gashing his skull. He was shackled to a flag post like a beast and endured 2 nights of agony. There was a trial that was made in a makeshift Kabete courthouse, which was a farce. Waiyaki was deemed guilty of assault, sentenced to deportation to Mombasa. He was chained and battered and marched away along the path now that is called Waiyaki Way. His family watched in horror as the wives were wailing and children clinging as he vanished into the horizon. The journey was hell. Waiyaki's wound festered, fever gripped him. Near Kibwezi, 378 kilometers from home, he collapsed. The guards, fearing rebellion if he reached trial, decided his fate. Accounts vary. Some say he was shot, others buried alive to silence his defiance. His body was dumped in a shallow grave at a Scottish mission, upside down as an insult beside rocky outcrops. Pakis ironically fell in soon after, dying and buried nearby, their graves eternal neighbors. But Waiyaki's spirit did not die. His arrest sparked fury. His warriors besieged Fort Smith anew. Though crushed, the embers smoldered. He was no collaborator. The initial welcome turned to fierce resistance when betrayal revealed the British hunger for land and control. Waiyaki saw the truth. These were conquerors, not allies. His stand inspired the Mau Mau, his descendants carrying the torch. His great-granddaughter Wambui Otieno fought in the forest, stealing guns and defying torture. His grandson Munywa Waiyaki shattered diplomacy against apartheid. His family petitioned for his remains, seeking a hero's burial and a monument on his named road. Today, as cars roar along Waiyaki Way, few know the man behind it. But listen closely. The wind carries his voice, urging, remember the December's son, who breached worlds yet stood unbowed. His story ends not in Kibwezi's dust, but in the hearts of those who resist. And now, you've heard it to the end. Hasn't it gripped you like the Highlands' eternal mist? Subscribe to the channel and give a like, and also comment down below.